Is King Harald really one of the original Yonko? In the latest chapter of the manga, we all witnessed how monstrous not only Sebek is, but also King Harald. He was actually able to go toe-to-toe with Sebek in battle, and even matched his haki. Actually, during chapter 1137, Rod already gave a hint about King Harald's strength, because he said in that moment that if Loki is monster level in strength, then so is his father, King Harald. Aside from Harald keeping up with Sebek's attacks, we also saw him jump from the red line down. Now, this part, Kaido actually also did this, but from an even higher place, because if you remember, Kaido jumped from a sky island all the way down to an island, meaning if the red line that Harald jumped from is only 10,000 meters high, then what Kaido jumped from was approximately 30,000 meters. So for sure, King Harald is still alive at this moment. Kaido survived, right? Another thing, based on King Harald's location, we also saw a lift, or what they call a gondola, meaning most likely the area where Harald would fall down to is the Red Port. It's still land and not water that he's landing on, so another piece of evidence of how strong Harald is the fact that Sebek tried to recruit him into his crew, because after Sebek witnessed how powerful Imu is and realized he couldn't defeat him, he planned to form the strongest pirate crew, where the purpose of this crew is to defeat the monstrous Imu-sama. And because he personally witnessed how strong Harald is when he went to marry Jawaz, someone almost equal to him in terms of strength, Sebek already knew at that moment that Harald would be a big help in taking down Imu. But because they had different beliefs, Harald didn't want to join his crew. So if Sebek knew that Harald wasn't really that strong, then most likely after getting rejected by Harald, he should have stopped trying to convince him to join the Rock's pirates. But, as stated in the recent chapter, Sebek still tried to recruit Harald continuously for 4 years, meaning Sebek really saw Harald in high regard. And in my opinion, this friendship between Harald and Sebek is the earlier version of Roger and Whitebeard. Like what we saw in the relationship between Roger and Whitebeard in their time is similar to what Sebek and Harald had in their own era. So how can I say that? Because they have the same vibe. If you remember during the Wano arc in Roger Pirate's flashback, it was shown how motivated Roger was in his dream of reaching Laugh Tale. He was very invested in that goal. Meanwhile, Whitebeard, who was technically at the same level as Roger in terms of strength, had no plans to dream of reaching that goal. Laugh Tale. So this is similar to what we saw with Rox and Harald. Sebek was also extremely motivated in his plan to dominate the world. But when Harald heard Sebek's explanation, he had no interest in that plan. So even if they're equal in strength, based on what we saw in their fight, Harald didn't agree with Sebek's ways. They had different life goals. And this is also how Roger and Whitebeard were. They were equally strong, but had different principles and beliefs in life. But they were still friends. Just like we saw with Harald and Sebek, that despite their differences, they were still friends. Now, regarding the part I mentioned in our analysis video, I won't be surprised if later on it's revealed that Harald was actually one of the original emperors. He already proved that by showing strength equal to Sebek. We all know that the Yonko title only came about after Roger died. The possible reason for this is because Roger's death triggered the beginning of the great age of piracy. He inspired everyone to set sail and become pirates. So we could say there was no such title as emperor back then, and it only came later to balance the powers in the world, since most people had become pirates. So if Roger died 25 years ago, and it was only at that time that the Yonko title was established, then we can assume the original Yonko were Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, and King Harald. Yes, guys, I believe those 4 were the original emperors. So what exactly are the requirements or criteria to be called an emperor? Well, there's no direct reference to the criteria for being a Yonko, but based on the story, we can figure out that there are 4 requirements: power, influence, territory, and crew size. These 4 requirements are easily met by Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido. That's self-explanatory. Whitebeard ruled over Fishman Island and several other territories. Big Mom controlled Whole Cake Island. And of course, Kaido had Wano as his territory. As for King Harald, he also checks all 4 of our criteria. In terms of power, we already saw how strong he is. In terms of territory and crew size, it's obvious. He literally had a vast territory. and pirate crew. He ruled over the giants of Elbaf. Now the question is, wasn't Anaru's brother Shaki the left-hand man of Sebek? Why isn't he or King Harald among the original emperors? Well, if you remember, Shaki was imprisoned after it was announced that Gol D Roger would be executed. The reason for that is he was defeated by Sengoku and Garp, meaning there's still a possibility he became an emperor, but I personally think the chances are low since he already had a history with the Marines. Like, if he bounced back after escaping from Impel Down, then yes, it's possible. But again, I think the chances are low. So if Harald is considered one of the original emperors 25 years ago, and we know he was killed by Loki 14 years ago, then it's possible that Loki himself took over King Harald's position as an emperor. And since it was revealed in chapter 957 that Shanks was declared an emperor 6 years ago, and it was confirmed that Shanks defeated Loki, then we assume the emperor that Shanks replaced was indeed Loki. So to summarize, these four were the original emperors 25 years ago after Roger died. Then 14 years ago, Loki replaced his father, King Harald, in that position since he killed him. Then 6 years ago, Shanks replaced Loki because he defeated him. That's why at the start of One Piece's story, these four were the known emperors. Anyway, that's our topic for today about King Harald, how strong he is, and why he's possibly one of the original emperors. If you happen to enjoy our topic today, don't forget to hit that like button because your like is a huge help for our channel. So that's it, peace.